So once again, Mike's not here, but this is normally Mike and Drew, but this time it's just Drew and another special guest at Mountain View. So, Bradley, how you doing today?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Good. So, what do you do?
Well, I worked in carpentry for the last few years until I believe I was called to the ministry. And ever since then, that's what I've been pursuing. I'll be going to college here in the fall.
Very cool.
And be studying preaching and church leadership from Johnson University.
A fine school. That's what I studied. That's where I went. So today we're talking about the idea of a calling to ministry because this job's not for everyone. So what is it that brings a person to decide, oh my goodness, I'm going to go into ministry? So today we're just going to kind of tell our stories. So we can kind of go back and forth, but I guess the first question would be like, when was that first sign of like, oh, this maybe is something here?
I would say over a year ago, I was just at work listening to sermons, and it was a particular sermon from a gentleman named Paul Washer. It was called 10 Indictments Against the Modern Church. And God did something that I would describe in the same way Jonathan Edwards did, as sort of my awakening to the realities of truly who God is and who I am as a person in relation to Him. And since then, I was like all in the Word. I was far more dedicated, far more disciplined, praying more often, on my face, just wanting more of Him. And as time progressed, I started to feel, well, I want to get the word out as much as I can. Like, how can I do that? How can I serve God with my talents? And so as it progressed, I felt more and more of like, I think I need to be a preacher. I think that's what I'm supposed to do. And I wrestled with it for a long time.
I'm sure. I mean, I feel like everyone does, like, because again, it's not a job you want.
No, not at all. Not at all.
It's, yeah. I mean, it's so fulfilling, but it's so tiring.
Yeah. And growing up as a pastor's kid.
Oh, yeah.
I knew the hardships of being a pastor, the time it takes, the dedication, the study, and the effect it has on your family too.
Yeah.
And so really, if I'm being honest, I didn't want it. I didn't want to preach. I really don't. And I still fight myself sometimes of, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Especially the admonition in James 2 of, let not many of you be teachers, brethren, for we will face a harsher judgment.
Yeah.
And that continues to stick in the back of my mind of, am what I am saying, is this correct and is this true and is this glorifying God? Because if it's not, that's on me.
Yeah, and that's a weight that must be carried. And you're the one who writes the sermons, and so like you're responsible for every word that you say. And so making sure that we're speaking about God well and truthfully.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my story's a little bit different. I don't know if I had like a specific moment, but just little things throughout my life have kind of pieced together. I guess the moment maybe for me would have been, I've been to Poland 3 times.
Oh, I've been there once.
Sweet.
I was deployed.
Oh, well, that's different. I went as a missionary. I guess I was like 13, so as much as a 13-year-old can be a missionary. And then at 14 and 15, I went to Nicaragua twice. Also kind of a missionary thing. That was also educational through a Christian school. But I felt so much joy on these trips doing the work of God that I was like, oh my goodness, what if I could feel this joy every day?
Yeah.
And of course, I've learned that ministry is not going to be joyful all the time.
Right.
But it is pleasing to God all the time. or almost all the time. Hopefully all the time. But, and so throughout high school, learning to develop some leadership skills. I wasn't a great leader in high school, but I did my best, as high schoolers do. So yeah. Where do we go from here? So I guess why Johnson?
Well, to be completely honest with you, all of my in-laws are graduates. My wife is a graduate of Johnson. It was also known as the Preacher's College for a long time.
Yeah,
and so true. I just felt like it's a good fit. I live near it.
Yeah.
It's near family. It's a good school. Why not?
Yeah. I mean, there doesn't have to be a crazy, oh my goodness, I feel called to this school.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is God provides a place to study and to work and to prepare. And Johnson is a great place for that, for sure. I also went to Johnson. I graduated in 22, almost a year ago now. Yeah, similar thing. My stepfather went to Johnson in the 90s, and his father went to Johnson in the early 70s, I think. I think that's the right timeline. So, yeah, nothing particularly, well, I guess when I went to Johnson the first time, as a prospective student, visiting, checking out what things are like, I saw it's a beautiful campus,
Oh, absolutely.
It's just cool to be there, but seeing the level of community that was there was really cool. And being able to participate in that just a little bit as a high schooler, how a group of, guys would bring me in and get me involved right away for no reason really. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, community was a big aspect there. So, so we got the beginning, we got the education part. So then where do you see yourself, in 5 years?
Well, I hope to be pastoring a church, shepherding them as a leader and as a minister and as a friend as well, because we're not meant to be some overarching powerhouse that is in control of people. We're meant to be the friend that comes alongside them and says, "Hey, look at this. This is wonderful, is it not?"
Yeah.
And so I hope that's where I'll be. But only if the Lord wills. Yeah. I don't want to go anything against what he desires.
Yeah. I mean, I think about the last year that I've spent here, and some of the most meaningful moments have been just hanging out with people, talking, telling stories. Mike may have talked about it on a different episode, but a couple months ago, I don't know, we got done with Sunday night Bible study, and all the kids were out in the parking lot, and there was probably 10 RC cars racing around, crashing into each other, crashing into shins and stuff.
That's good
time.
It
was fantastic. And just holding on to those moments and thinking, wow, this is a church community, this is ministry happening as we speak. There's parents sitting talking, and there's kids running around jumping over RC cars. But that's where ministry happens, and how do we make more of that? Because I think a lot, especially with COVID, mm-hmm. community has been awful, and it's rare and like good community, there's Facebook groups or whatever, but that's not real community. Community where you're able to just live life together.
Yeah.
How do we develop that? And of course, we're young guys. I don't know the answer to that question. Do you have the answer to that question?
No. I think a good framework to look at it would be how, maybe in the 1800s where the reverend was seen as the town's reverend.
Yeah.
He was at every birth. He was at every death, every marriage ceremony. The town knew him and he knew them.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of what we need to be doing as ministers.
Yeah.
And I think we've lost that in this digital age.
Mm-hmm.
We spend more time friending each other on Facebook than we do shaking a hand or visiting houses.
Yeah.
But I also understand the constraint of we live far apart. Pastors only have so much time. We do have to study for our sermons. That's one of the main points of an elder.
Give time for our families, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
My wife is awesome, and I want to spend time with her. And I need to spend time with her if I want to have a healthy marriage there.
Right,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
And God will never expect you to give up your family for the ministry. And any man who tells you that is wrong.
Yeah. For sure. Your family is your first ministry.
Absolutely.
And you have to minister to them first, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. These, you know, just being there for the little things. We went to a second graders basketball game a couple weeks ago, and it was awesome. And just being there and being seen there and having more conversations. Yeah, I think a big portion of ministry, and that's a type of ministry that does not have to rest solely on our shoulders.
Right.
You know?
Right.
We were just talking in a board meeting the other night about how, you know, there's a level of things that have to come from the pastor, and then there's a level of things that can be partnered with members of the congregation. You know, different ministries like visitations. I know Mike, when he does visitations, he likes to bring just someone with him, and so there's another guy there, and then you get, you know, that time on the road and then hanging out with people. We call that a partnered responsibility. So there's primary responsibilities and partnered responsibilities. Yeah, that's so good, thinking about how we can do more of that.
Yeah, and also too, I'm sure you know this quite well. The word deacon means servant.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what they should be doing, is serving the congregation, serving each other.
Yeah.
You know, being there for everybody, because we are supposed to be a family united in Christ.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think where to take it from there. I don't know. I'm freezing up so bad. Brady, cut this part out. Dude, I don't know what to say. Where do we take it from here?
Let's see. We could talk about our experiences actually preaching for the first time.
That's a great idea. Okay. So, so you've been preaching a little bit. How many sermons do you think you've done?
I've only done 3.
3 sermons. Wow.
Yes, only 3. The first one I did at a little church out in Seymour.
Okay.
On Matthew, if I remember correctly, it was 24, and it was a topical sermon on forgiveness.
Okay.
My second one was from Romans chapter 1, verses 16 and 17, and that was a topic given to me for the power of the gospel. And that one is probably the one I'm most proud of.
Yeah.
And then this latest one that I did was, I was continuing my father's exposition through the Gospel of John. And I was in John chapter 13, verses 31 through 33.
Nice. So yeah, you're getting a little bit of experience. What have you learned even in those short, couple of weeks?
Preparation is key.
Oh yeah.
Do lots and lots of study. Make sure your references are correct.
Yeah.
In fact, I caught one of my own mistakes. It was maybe Friday night as I was looking through my sermon, and I'm like, oh, I misdid the reference there. That's not right.
Yeah.
And it was about a meaning of a Greek word, which is very important. And so I had to go back and fix that portion.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, I have a bad habit of procrastination, and it's not because I want to procrastinate, but it's I don't know if I'm mentally prepared, spiritually prepared to write a sermon, now. And so it ends up, well, it's got to get done eventually. And then Saturday rolls around.
Yeah.
So I spend my day Saturday doing that. So, yeah, preparation is so important. Doing the work of making sure you know the word
Right.
well enough to communicate the word.
Yeah.
Because you can do study for yourself, but it's a different kind of study when you're preaching to people, when you're responsible for
Yeah.
when you're responsible for like discipling your congregation.
Yeah, giving clear communication
Yeah.
to them.
Yeah. Yeah, my first sermon was in 2020. So about 3 years ago now. Man, that's crazy. So my first sermon in class, that was right when COVID hit, and so we had to record our sermons.
Oh, yeah.
So my first real sermon was just to a camera. And so it was a well-written sermon, I think. I'm sure I preached it pretty well. But my first real sermon in front of a congregation was that summer. I took an internship in Indiana, and for some reason they hired me, and for some reason they let me get in front of people. I mean, I would have been 20. My first sermon, this church let me preach.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But God worked through that. I remember I preached about, now I can't remember. That's okay. It was probably okay. It's actually on YouTube. That's the thing in this new digital age.
Yeah.
All of my sermons I've ever preached are somewhere on YouTube on the internet.
Yeah.
Because we record now. That's what we do.
Yeah.
So even at this small church, we got a little GoPro set up.
Well, you mentioned that it was kind of just a happenstance that they're letting you preach. Similar thing happened to me.
Yeah.
My wife was at work. I decided I'm just going to go check out this little church just to see what it's about. And I came in, I met the pastor. He's like, hey, is there anything I can pray for you for? And I said, well, yes, now that you say something. I'm struggling with the call to preach, and just pray for me that God will reveal himself. And we had a lunch later on, and while we were sitting down eating, he's like, would you like to preach for me at my church? And I'm like, okay, it's not why I invited you to lunch. I was not attempting that. He's like, I know that, but why don't you come preach? And
that's cool.
And sure enough, I showed up, and a few months later, he invited me back, and now he's actually a mentor of mine.
That's cool.
And we try to meet on Wednesdays, go over books, over scripture, and all that.
That's super cool. And I think that's part of the ministry as well, like being able to find those people who've been doing this a while.
Yeah.
Because we're young guys. I don't know everything. I'm sure you don't know
Absolutely
everything.
not, yeah.
So being able to find those people who are willing to take time and minister to us and disciple us so that we can go out and minister. Yeah, God works through those people like crazy. I mean, I have so many mentors that I could sit here and thank. And
yeah, and really, I think as a minister continues in his journey and in his life, that should be a goal of his, to seek out young men
absolutely
who feel the call or who maybe don't know yet but show the signs of it.
Yeah, and having the wisdom to find those signs
exactly
and point them out to
exactly
the person, Yeah, that's. I mean, I'd love to mentor someone, but I'm 23 years old.
Yeah,
I'm ready for that.
I'm 25, and I'm just trying to get to the point where I can write a sermon within a week.
Yeah.
All of my sermons, I've had 3 or more weeks to prepare, and I've taken every bit of my time to do it.
Yep. That's how I'm feeling, like potentially going to be preaching a little bit more. And
yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready to do that week to week, but we'll see how it goes,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we got a few more minutes. What else do you want to talk about?
Oh, what's your experience like being an associate minister, especially at your age?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate being an associate as opposed to a lead, because I do have that mentorship with Mike and being able to kind of tag team some things. I don't feel like it's all on my shoulders.
Yeah,
and so I have so much appreciation for them allowing me to be an associate as opposed to a lead minister. I think back to my internships, and the things that I appreciated most about my internships was that I was able to do something a little bit different every week. So maybe this week it's, we're taking kids to camp. Maybe this next week it's, we're going on a mission trip. This week we're cleaning up. And so I feel that I have the gift of organization, being able to create and maintain systems of doing things. And I've been able to do that working in more of a background role because Mike has taken on a lot of the preaching. And I've been able to preach, and I've loved being able to preach. But it's been cool to be able to do some of these other things that the regular person doesn't think about when they come to church.
Right.
But there are so many things that we do week to week that just,
Right.
it's what we do. So, yeah, I enjoy my job.
Mhm.
I don't plan on it changing a whole lot, but we'll see.
How do you mentally deal with the fact that, in a sense, you are in a leadership role spiritually to these people who, in many cases, are much older than we are, and sometimes more red than we are?
Yeah.
How do you do that mentally?
It's been a struggle. That's probably been one of the biggest struggles I've had, to be honest. I feel like a lot that I can do is just be there and listen,
Yeah.
And when it comes to preaching, I'm doing my best to be prepared so that, if they have questions after the fact, or if they have something that they don't agree with, that I'm able to, like, at the very least hear them out and see where we're at. So yeah, I'm trying my best to wrestle with that a little bit, but I think as I get more experience, even in these last 6 months, I feel like I've had so much more experience than I did when I first showed up here. So yeah, that is definitely a struggle. So thanks for pushing on that. But yeah, all right, we're right at time. So this has been Mike. Well, except not really Mike. It's been Bradley and Drew at Mountain View. If you have questions or comments or just want to talk, you can email us at podcast@MVCC, the number 6 mile .org. Let me try that again. Email us at podcast@MVCC, number 6 mile.org. There it is. So yeah, do you have any last thoughts?
Nope. Hope that God is glorified in this conversation and continues to be glorified as we move forward.
Yeah. And also eat your vegetables.